Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today I'm going to be doing a piece of abstract layers to make a really quick art journal layout. Now this is based on a piece of artwork that I did recently, which was inspired by Rae Missigman, I think is how you pronounce her name. I'm really sorry if it's not. And it was just such a beautiful piece of artwork. I wanted to have a similar piece in my art journal. So I decided that I would work on my craft paper in my Dina Wakeley journal because I really hate the craft paper and anything I can do to cover it up makes me happy. So I'm just going in with some gesso and drying that off. Now, usually I put my gesso on really thinly. I think it's because it's on craft, you can actually see the unevenness of how that was applied. It wasn't too much of an issue though, because I knew that having the white would help the colours that I was going to use over the top of it. So this art journal page is all about building layers, and you'll notice in this video it's not usually as fast as the other ones I've done. This art journal page took less than half an hour to put together. It was a really quick one to do, and it's a technique that you can do in your art journal. You can do on a piece of watercolor paper, you can do it and cut it up into cards. It's just a really quick and easy and fun thing to do. So I'm just starting off with some cool colors on my page. I think this one's called Ocean, and I'm using a really watery brush to water it down. So I'm using the acrylics almost like an acrylic watercolor. Again, going in some lime paint and just watering it down, not really worrying if my paintbrush was all that dirty because it's all going to blend together. By using just cool colours or just warm colours, you're not going to make mud, so you're just going to get a nice blend of colours together. Once I had finished, I've put in some of the lapis, which is sort of a bright, deeper blue colour, so that mid-tone blue colour, just to cover over the background. Again, not really worrying about, where it's going or how it's going, or I'm kind of defining those circles, but not really. So it's all going to sort of add to the finished piece in the end. When I finish that, I'm going to go in and heat set this. Now, it's really important when you're working in layers that your layer below is dry. Once acrylic paint is dry, it's permanent, it's not going to move. So if you apply anything over the top, it's not going to mix with it, which is really important. Well, I'm going in with one of my favourite colours, which is the fuchsia. And again, I had too much, so I've got my use it up journal here, and I'm just slapping in the extra paint in there to make an interesting background for another day. Again, I'm watering down my paintbrush, so I'm getting these translucent layers happening, and you can see sort of underneath the fuchsia changes colour when it's over the blue to over the green. And that's what you're looking for when you're doing this page, is to have those different layers happening as you're working. As I was doing this, I decided to rub away some of the paint because while I love that fuchsia, it was just a little bit too dominating on this page. So I'm just using a wet wipe and a circle stencil, to just create some pattern in the background and rub it away. Again, because I'm going to add another layer over the top of this, I'm going to some lighter colours. I just wanted to have that layer permanent so that I could sort of paint over the top and not mix it up and darken down the other colours. So for this, I'm going in with the straight paint onto the page and just sort of painting it on, or scribbling it on, and then again using a wet brush, not quite as wet as it had been before, to spread out my paint. But again, you can still see it's fairly translucent, particularly up in the top left corner. And now I'm going in with a different stencil to rub off the background, so I'm getting some of those layers from below coming through. So it's just building up. Now it looks like a hot mess at the moment. That's okay. It does all come together at the end. So when you're building layers, it's all about being, I suppose, either not thinking about it or being brave. I suppose it depends on where you lie on that spectrum. I tend to be just to not think about it or be okay in the end. For some people it's like, I'll just be brave and I'll do it. at the end of the day, you can always paint over it if you really don't like it, or tear it out or cut it into something else. As of yet, I've never had to do that in one of my journal pages, so which I'm pretty happy about. But I'm sure there'll be a day that I'll do something with it. So I'm going in with some white paint now because I'm a shocker for not putting enough white on my page, and the yellow and orange that I used there just dominated what I was doing a little bit too much, I felt. So I wanted to dull it down a little bit and add in some of those colours that I'd lost from the background, particularly that blue, which I really loved. So I'm just sort of defining those circles again, and then just putting some of that blue around the edge just to sort of pick it up, and to, by putting that little bit of blue in the foreground that's from the background, it kind of ties the layers together and you can sort of see it coming through a little bit. Because I love doing it, I'm just chucking on the paint now with my fingers. You get a different texture by using your fingers than using a paintbrush. It goes on a lot smoother and you've got a little bit more control about what you're doing. Now with this colour, this is a different paint. It's Derivan. It's a fluro yellow, and it's been a paint that I've been using an awful lot in my journals at the moment. It's almost like a glaze over the top, so it's very, very translucent, but it's quite pigmented because you can really see the shine of that colour coming through. It's quite a strong colour, so you really don't need it to be opaque on your page. And because of the nature of the colour, I suppose, it works really well with warm colours, but it also has that lime green quality that it works really well with cool colours as well. So now I'm just sort of going in and trying to balance up the page a little bit. So adding in just a little bit more of that fuchsia around the edges, just to add that deep colour back in again. And just to balance up what's happening inside the circles, so that it kind of, again, sort of ties together. At this stage you can see I've kind of lost those crosses I had in the background, but that's okay, because I've got some other interesting stuff happening on the page. I'm just going in now because this is sort of my final layer with the paint, so I'm just making sure it's all nice and dry before I start adding my Stabilo oil pencil. So this is a water-soluble pencil, and I'm just being really loose with how I'm using it, holding it quite far up the pencil, doing some really sketchy circles with it, and going in and making some just different marks all over my page. So these are sort of little tally lines, and across the middle of the page I'm going to do some little crosses. Now I tend to work in threes when I'm doing this, so if I've got a pattern of the little dash lines down the bottom, I'll put them in sort of 3 paces around my page. With the crosses, I quite liked how they were going, and I thought I'd add them all the way across, and you can see I'm adding them over the top of the circles. They're going into the circles. I'm not sort of going around. So when you're doing something like this, you do want to kind of layer it all up. Because it's a water soluble pencil, I'm also going to spritz it with water to activate the pencil and to get those sort of drippy lines happening. I'm really trying hard to work with drips at the moment, so I am sort of trying to challenge myself a little bit to put more drippage into my work. I then just got a little bit of paper towel over the top just to pick up any of the excess ink that had run down that I wasn't quite happy with, but I really liked the really fine feathering that happened. And the good thing about the Stabilo oil pencil is you can sort of see, particularly on the edge of that large circle at the top, when you activate it you get this almost ink-like effect. Which, if I tried to do that with straight ink, would have been really difficult to do. So having it in a pencil form is just really, really handy. And if you've never used one of those pencils before, they're amazing, as you get this really rich line when you put them down, and it just doubles when you add water to it. So they're a little bit expensive sometimes to buy. I think where I've bought them before, it's been about $4 for a pencil. But they're well worth it, so have a go and see what you think. They do come in other colours as well, which I've never got. It would be interesting to see how they work, but I do love the black. So just to finish this page, I decided to use the Dina Wakley collage words and use the words be luminous, be vivid, be resolute, because I had that beautiful fluorescent colour which was just so luminescent on the page. So I'm just using some matte medium, being quite generous with it and rubbing over the top. I am being careful not to put it onto this Stabilo Oil pencil, because as it's a water activated media, if I put the gel medium on it, it would activate that and sort of smear it over it. So just be aware of where you're placing this, and if you've got the pencil there, that you don't really want to rub it over the top. Now I've got a running battle with these collage sheets at the moment, because where I used to be able to get them fairly translucent, I've lost my knack somewhat, and I wasn't particularly happy with sort of that white line across it, so I wanted to blend it in a little bit. So I just got a little bit more of that fluorescent colour glaze over the top, just to sort of blend it in a little bit more with the page, and it also gave a little bit more colour to the inside of the circle. It's mixing with a little bit of the gel medium because that hadn't dried yet, which just adds to tinting down or glazing the top of your page, so it doesn't hurt your paint, it just adds to it. Because I had a little bit of extra paint left there, I decided to just add some extra pops over my page just to make it look even more luminescent. And if you don't have some fluorescent paint in your stash, I suggest you maybe go and try some, because it's amazing to work with. And I'm just using a little bit of a wet wipe to wipe off the paint where I didn't want it, and heat setting it. And that's this page done. It was a really fun, quick page to do. I love how the words worked with it and the sort of circle shapes. It looked fairly organic, but just with those colours it really worked together. So here's a close-up of how it all tied together. You can kind of see the layers in the background coming through, and just adding the different effects. I hope you have a go at trying this. It's lots of fun to do. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye for now.